Welcome back. Now, Edward Ouko served as the Auditor General for 8 years, taking office in 2011, 1 year after the promulgation of the new constitution, with his job description being to check on the spending of taxpayers' money. Well, since his retirement 9 months ago, no successor has been appointed, making one question who is keeping the national government and county governments accountable when it comes to how your money is spent. Joining me now for this exclusive interview on Newsnight is the former Auditor General, Edward Ouko. Mr. Ouko, thank you so much for your time and welcome to Newsnight. I trust you can hear me. Now, the last time we had you for an interview here at Citizen TV, Mr. Ouko, you spoke a little bit about your concerns about security. You spoke about your worries about your personal security, strange phone calls, strange SMSs, and the like. How have you been over the last 9 months since you shared those concerns with us?
Thank you very much, Wahiga, and I'm grateful that you sought me out in these times of lockdown. Yes, indeed, at that time I did express the issues of generally what I call the post-service protection and benefits of the Auditor General, because there is no clear legislative framework to handle and to cater for the security as we talked about then, and other post-service benefits as compared to the other offices. So in terms of security, it's very difficult to tell you that I'm secure or not, because thank God for now, for the 9 months, I've been able to move around. But one thing is that I do not, all the securities were withdrawn.
And you've spoken about benefits that you were owed as a former Auditor General that have not been forwarded to you or allocated to you. You've alluded to.
There are two things. There's some allowances and which were due before even I left the office, which up to now has not been paid. But then there is the general gratuity and other things which is now being worked on.
Okay. Let me fast forward to where we are today, and I might throw you into a bit of controversy. Your office has had no occupant up until now. What would be the effect of an empty chair at the Auditor General's office? What effect would that have? What risks are there?
One thing internationally, I think it is something which is of concern. You know, when the parka is not there, we don't know what, or the rats may be all over the place. So there is that element that at this point in time, there is a window of opportunity for those who really want to dip their hands into public coffers.
I'm sure that's something that concerns many Kenyans tonight. How do you think the transition could have been handled in a more speedy, in a more expeditious manner, in your view?
In my humble sense, I really don't see a reason for any gap. I think the recruitment would have even started earlier. Of course, those who waited said that, that a vacancy had to be declared. I really don't see the legal sense of that. The auditor's office is not an office where you go to vote and elect. It's a professional office. So especially that the mandate is coming to an end in this date. I'm at loss why such a legal thing should have been an issue. Why the knowledge of a vacancy coming into being 6 months before my time could not have been handled and seen.
Okay. Thank you for just bringing that to our light. Now, the role of the Auditor General is in many ways in design, involved in you'll find yourself rubbing the government that you serve the wrong way. It doesn't matter whether it's you, Edward Ouko, or the next appointee. That's just, it comes with the territory. The relationship with government tends to be characterized by friction and at some point even tension as well. You've been there. Tell us a little bit about it. This could serve as a message to whoever will take that office next.
That's the nature of the function and the nature of the oversighting in general, that these tensions are professionally expected and are healthy. The only thing is when it is personalized, when it is used in other forms than what that tension is supposed to be. When the person is threatened, when people are don't want to see you as a person in your work, rather than seeing the issues as the main point of discussion.
Is that what happened to you? You sound like you're narrating a very personal experience, Mr. Ouko.
That was there. It was there, and it will have to be there. It will be something which is the person of the Auditor General to know how to manage and how to steer that. So it is a day-to-day, you are in a political environment, and also you have to steer the professional and balance it also with the politics of the day.
Which makes me then wonder, what sort of support, for your time in office were you hoping for? What sort of support did you receive? But also, what would you say you lacked in terms of support, especially from the executive?
Well, I think, benefit of hindsight, I think I would have liked more support from the executive, more communication from the executive at the highest level.
Why do you think, in your personal view, it's taken so long to have someone replace you? What's your theory?
I don't know, because nobody has asked me the question. You've asked me, for instance, what kind of person. Maybe that element is a struggle for those who are seeking to recruit for this office. But a lot of people also really sometimes also shy away from the office when they know some of the struggles I had to go through. So sometimes, and there's a number of factors, in attracting the right person. For instance, we've talked of my post-service benefits and protection. That becomes one of the most important issues of attracting the right person. Because once you have a situation where you're giving somebody a mandate of 8 years, and underlying you still have the system, the people who will see this person come in and go, and you don't protect the person after the office, then the person during these 8 years is quite vulnerable to conflicts of integrity.
You've spoken about 8 years. We've had no Auditor General for the last 9 months. What sort of backlog can you assume the next office holder will have to contend with?
I am a bit disappointed that we've had to have this gap. As I was leaving office, first of all, when I joined the office, we had backlogs going about 3-4 years, and over time we cleared that. By the time I was leaving office, we were ready now to report within the 6 months of the Constitution. We required deadline by the Constitution. We were ready to report by 31st December. So because there's no audit and because the work was done, a lot of work are in abeyance. It's been done, but it is there. Now, how And remember, it's a big, Kenya is an expanding economy. The other day we are now an economy of 2.7 trillion budget. So you can imagine the audits which have been in abeyance, especially those which are dealing with capital markets, things like the central bank, those who are required by legislation to be reported within a statutory period. These are all still out, but that's why, internationally, in the eyes of the international financial market, I mean, Kenya is presenting itself very bad on this score.
It's interesting.
There is a lot of audits which yes. I believe will have to be reviewed, will have to be cleared, because the person coming in must review the files. They cannot confidently take control and take responsibility without maybe sometimes relooking at a lot of the files.
You've actually taken me to the budget discussion, which I wanted to come to a bit later on, but we can delve into it right now. It is estimated that we lose anywhere between maybe 30% or even more to corruption in our budgets, whether it's from a national level or a county level. How does corruption work within the budgeting process from your experience? Show us or give us an idea of the pattern of corruption when a budget is put in place.
I'm not an expert in corruption.
But you're an expert in checks and balances.
But checks and balances. But what it is we first of all must have a system, first of all, whereby I would imagine that before we read even the budget, we tell the Kenyans what the budget is going to be, that the Auditor General would have come before maybe 2 or 3 months beforehand and first of all told the Kenyans in the same platform like where you're going to declare in Parliament, to say how ministry by ministry they fared and they expended the last year's budget. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing which can indicate to you the content of how much what you call fluff, which may be being inbuilt in the budget. We don't have that, but it is an open secret that a number of people would want more money each year, whether or not they had used the past amount well. So there is a risk that the amount they're looking for is not fully justifiable in terms of the absorption capacity, in terms of the projects being carried over and so forth. If all this is not looked up in context, then you end up potentially having a budget which has got locked in some wastages, some duplications.
As you've had time now to think about your time as the Auditor General, the 8 years that you spent, briefly tell me any regrets that came to mind as you've taken this period to rest?
I think looking at my past professional experience, I think my 8 years serving the country was one of the most fulfilling time of my life, and also one of the most fulfilling jobs I ever done, because it had an objective beyond the normal expectation of money and so forth. So I really don't have regrets in that. I could have been better supported, but that's now the water's under the bridge. But looking back, I feel satisfied, but a bit disappointed because of the continuity element, having this gap. Okay. And which we shouldn't have been in a position to ask Kenya. Kenya had reached a situation where the office was respected internationally. Mm-hmm. The office was a leader in the international fora in terms of professionalism.
Mr. Oko,
so right now, with what we've done, That's my biggest disappointment.
That's your biggest disappointment. We have to take that as your last word. Thank you so much for your time and for speaking to us here on Newsnight. Edward Ouko, the former Auditor General, and the last person who sat on that seat, because there's been a gap now for about 9 months or so, with the next Auditor General yet to be appointed. But we take a short break. You're watching Newsnight. Stay with us. So much more on the other side.